Powerful art that sticks with you is usually the result of technical skill and some indefinable thing, a kind of lightning in a bottle that shocks life into an illustration. Djamila Knopf is an independent artist from Germany who seems to have shelves of bottled lightning that she applies to her work, garnering her over 300,000 Instagram followers and counting, and a career doing personal work. In this mini-series, Djamila talks to Bobby about her schoolism class, StoryDriven Illustrations, and her personal techniques for catching lightning over and over again.
Hi, Djamila. So thank you so much for your time. I want to talk a little bit about story-driven illustrations, which totally makes sense because you have this wonderful class on schoolism, story-driven illustrations with Djamila Knopf. So I wanted to ask, last time I was talking to you, we are talking about creating ideas, and we're talking about story and evoking emotion and the importance of it. But I want to get a little bit more specific on something that you talk about in your very first lesson, which is idea generation. Now, I know there's a lot to it, which people can totally get in your course, but can you talk me through one of them? Perhaps techniques of dealing with a blank page, because I know that that is something that I deal with as well.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's in there definitely, and for me, the easiest way is really to do a little bit of research before I start something. So I talked about this approach, how to get an idea last time, and for me, I like to start off with writing. Sometimes I don't immediately jump into drawing because that can be overwhelming. Let's say you have this idea, you want to draw like a fairy in her like fairy cave or whatever, and then you start it and you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna look like this, and then you place some lines and then the image starts to get away from you while you're drawing. That sometimes happens to me, so I like to really just nail down the idea first before I start, and that can look something like if I take an image of mine, I just wanted to draw some penguins for it. So I thought like, okay, I'm going to draw penguins. And then I was looking through some images, and then I saw blue sea, and I was like, oh yeah, that's nice. And then I remembered this bus stop I had seen, in Japan. It's looking over the sea, and it was just beautiful. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to, even though it makes no sense, but I'm just going to draw penguins at a bus stop with a girl who's just waiting there at the sea. And that's how the idea developed. And it can also, make more sense, obviously, but that's just how it comes together. I have these little word associations that I do. Or, for example, I've had this idea for a long time of like an overgrown bike in an alleyway. So I was thinking, okay, what is this bike doing there? Or like, who's interacting with it? What's happening? So I thought, okay, I'd like it to be like kind of mysterious atmosphere. So maybe in the very early morning when the sun comes up. So maybe there could be like a jogger there who discovers it. So, and all these kinds of elements that you think of come together and make a more complex story. So I really like to do it that way. I just write something down and then I circle it and then I draw like a line and go like, okay, this. And then, oh, now I have an idea for color. Okay. And now I have an idea for a daytime. And now, it kind of connects like a mind map. That's how I like to start off. And then I go to the drawing. So at this point, the page isn't blank anymore, which is nice because you've written down stuff. You can also use a new document, but what I like to do while sketching is really to start off with like huge light brushes, because that fills space like really, really quickly, because when you have this white big canvas, it can be intimidating when you go in with like a tiny, tiny line. It's like, oh, it's so lonely on the page. But if you go in like big shapes, okay, here's like the bicycle and here's the alleyway. So it fills in very quickly. And then I like to layer it and go smaller and go darker. But starting out with like a hazy sketch helps my brain, imagine things that aren't there and fill in the blanks, which makes it less scary. And I like to have reference at hand. That is nice as well.
That's fantastic. And just to summarize for all you out there listening that want something actionable, take a blank piece of paper, write down a bunch of ideas. And from my understanding of your explanation, you don't even need to have fully thought out ideas, right? These are pieces,
Yeah.
interesting kind of ingredients that you might choose. And then once you have a good amount of ingredients, so to speak, then you circle the ones that you like to put together,
Yes.
right? And then from there, you're going to start off with just drawing lightly and creating your ideas.
Yeah. And when you started writing, I think you can scrap things much more easily, because when you draw it, you're like, oh, I've already drawn this, I should keep it. But then it's not the idea you wanted. So maybe try to figure out what you want first and then start.
Or you could write down 1,000,000 fairies, and that took you a few seconds. But if you had to draw 1,000,000 fairies, then, oh my goodness, that's going to take you a while. Wonderful. Well, there you go, everybody. Take on the blank page challenge with Djamila. And if you want to know more, if you want to learn exactly how she thinks and she does and all that stuff, highly recommend taking her course, StoryDriven Illustrations with Djamila Knopf on schoolism.com.